So happy to have with us Phil White. He's the Readiness Operations Center Emergency Manager with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and their operation down at Lake Charles, Louisiana, where we've seen, of course, already 2 hurricanes this season impact about 6 weeks apart. First, it was Hurricane Laura and then Hurricane Delta just recently last week. Phil, tell me what's happening right now with the operation that's down there, and particularly to the Blue Tarp mission. Is this the first? Was Laura a couple of weeks ago, back in late August? Was that the first storm of the season where the Corps was brought in to support a Blue Tarp mission?
It was the first one that we're physically executing a mission assignment. Now we're brought into almost every storm by FEMA in the pre-declaration with our SMEs and planners. But yes, this is the first one we physically have executed the Blue Roof mission.
How is that going as far as, were you wrapping up with Laura before Delta came in?
Yeah, so we were substantially complete. And what that really means is all the information from the ROE collections, the rights of entry to go on somebody's property to do the work has been collected, validated, and sent to the contractors. And the contractors were, over 95% complete prior to that, maybe less than 40 some roofs to get done when Delta came ashore.
But then with Delta impacting a lot of the same area, we saw kind of an overlap there. Have you had to go back in and, I guess, reattach some of these tarps for some of these homeowners?
Yeah, and just to help you out, just because name is important, but for the fabric that we use, it's a fiber sheeting that is pretty strong. So the roof material when we put on is really good. And in this case, 90% of the roofs installed by the Corps of Engineers and our corporate partners or contractual partners in this survived Delta, which is really great news. One of the problems we had upon identifying it with some of the technology that we use, such as flyovers, GIS, and things like that, was that majority of the third-party temporary roofing or tarps that were put on by others than us for working for FEMA, they did not survive. So that's one of the challenges we have, is trying to have a nice dry place for people to live.
I think that's an important point there. You really talk about people when they think of the blue roof mission, they think it's those blue tarps, and it really doesn't sound like that it is. It's a much durable material there that you guys are fixing up on top of the house. How many did you guys do for Laura? And then how many more are you forecasted to do now that you've had Delta come in?
About a little over 8,000 roofs were completed for Laura prior to landfall. And that number really hasn't moved that much to complete what we call, like Laura 1 or Laura 1 Alpha. Then Delta came in, and so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just initiating what we're calling a Laura 2 for the Corps of Engineers. So Delta's winds weren't really to the level of the damage, and obviously our product really survived well. But now we're just trying to go back and re-identify some of those affected people that may not have the opportunity to register or to apply for one of our blue roofs. And so we kind of reactivated the Laura mission, and kind of extending the Laura mission to have a larger ROE collection period. And we're kind of reinitiating it to try to help some of those homeowners and survivors that are out there.
Okay, so I know that period, it kind of had wrapped up, I think a couple of weeks ago.
Correct.
They had a certain time where they could request assistance from the Corps. So now what you guys have done is basically reopen that application period, so to speak, where they can say, hey, listen, I got a lot more damage from the second storm. It looks like now I probably could use some assistance, and then they can qualify perhaps for a mission at their house.
Correct. So our initial, under Laura, there was about 20,000 or 30,000 roofs from our assessment that would have been eligible. We received about 14,000 ROEs, and of those, because there's things that aren't able to be put on, like if the roof or the structure is substantially damaged, they don't qualify for a blue roof. But that got us down to that about 8,000 number, and so we know there's still affected people out there, and especially with Delta coming in with Cat 1 winds on a roof that didn't have a lot of resiliency. We know that there's really affected survivors out there. So we opened it up again for another 14 days for the rights of entry collection. We do that through online means. We have 2 call centers, and either today or tomorrow we're going to open up a local collection point, a faith-based ROE collection point in Lake Charles, to try to get as many of those people. And that's one of our big things, is we want to message capability and connect survivors to our resource that we have. And so we really push it through all social media and everything else in this 14-day period.
A lot of people depend on the Corps for so many things during an emergency and a disaster event. Are you guys working other disasters right now you're aware of around the U.S., or is it mainly just kind of focused where, you know, this Gulf Coast region has been impacted recently with some of these storms?
No, you know, as an enterprise, you know, we're kind of set up in divisions. So out in the South Pacific Division, there's the forest fires around Portland and California.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some active elements forward and working with our state and local partners and FEMA to try to frame that mission response. Obviously, I'm not involved in that, but so basically, I mean, for people who may see this, if there's a natural disaster or like a homeland defense disaster, the Corps of Engineers is always going to be nested with our state, local, and federal partners in that total national response framework to bring engineering expertise to that kind of framing that problem and then trying to help those folks out.
I think that's an important thing to understand, that the Corps does do a lot besides just the Blue Roof mission. Do you anticipate that if there's any additional storms, hopefully not, but it's been such a crazy season down, and especially in the Gulf, that impact Louisiana? Do you think that these support missions that you guys are doing will hopefully be enough to help these residents make it through another storm? I know it kind of depends on how big of a storm it might be and how strong, but are these blue roof missions built to withstand the elements for a long period of time until they really can rebuild?
I mean, that's really kind of the stopgap, the reason for design. If the roofing industry or like insurance, you know, if there's not enough shingles in that area, it has to sustain itself. Now, there's not a date or a wear time we look at. And obviously the great news story for this situation we're in here for Laura and Delta is that 90% of them did 90% of them did survive the impact of Delta, which was a Cat 1 in this area. So, you know, they do have a level of resiliency. We meet with a lot of people out here on the streets. We have received, you know, some thank yous, and people are really impressed with the performance of it that had it done. And, you know, one of my deputy commander was out at Walmart yesterday trying to hand out blue roof flyers to get people to sign up. And he had people going, I wish I'd have done it because my neighbor did it. So that's a good news story. And again, remember, it's not about us. It's about those survivors having a dry place to live and to be able to continue rebuilding in this local community.
That's really great, Phil. Thank you so much. I appreciate the update that you provided for us on what the Corps there is doing on the ground in Louisiana after Hurricanes Delta and Laura. That's Phil White, Readiness Operations Center Emergency Manager with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Louisiana.
Thank you, sir.